Hello and welcome to episode 48 of Generations Apart. I am Jingle Bell Jay.
I'm Robbie the Reindeer.
And you're joining us for a Christmas special of Generations Apart, where we're going to be having a cheeky Christmas drink and sharing memories of Christmas gone past and our gaming and tech memories. So sit back, enjoy a Christmas rendition of our theme tune, and then let's get stuck into some Christmas memories. So this episode is going to be a little bit different. For those who aren't watching on video, I highly encourage you, if you've never gone to YouTube and watched this before, for nothing more than comedy value, you need to for this episode, because we not only have silly Christmas names, but also humorous Christmas outfits. And we will be talking this week, in the spirit of Christmas, about our memories of Christmas and nostalgia for tech and gaming Christmas gifts that we received when we were younger. We're just going to share some memories, have a festive drink and chill out. So I hope you'll enjoy this one. Maybe it's one to listen to or watch along to while you're doing your own Christmas prep for the big day. But whatever you choose to do with it, pour yourself a drink and join us for a little bit of nostalgia. Before we get into all that, though, it is tradition on this show to start with what's new. And Robbie, what's new with you this week?
Well, first of all, Merry Christmas. Cheers.
Merry
Drinks
Christmas.
up.
Cheers. Chin chin.
I definitely recommend checking this out. I'm going to flash my jumper, which you can only see the top of at the moment. But actually, it's much more dramatic when I stand up.
It's some sort of terrifying festive cat. Why does he look so angry? Does he not understand the spirit of Christmas?
He's just really excited for it. He's screaming in excitement. And I bought this a few years ago, trying to find like the ugly Christmas jumper. And this is like one of the ugliest ones I could find. So there you go. I cracked it out for today. But getting back to what's new with me this week. So I was scrolling through Instagram the other day, as I do, and I found a story of this guy, and he always posts these interesting videos. I don't actually follow him, but I think I might do now, because he always posts these like interesting websites that you might not have heard of. And it's an AI themed website, which is quite common for our show, if you haven't seen before. It's basically, and I would love to do a live demo of it, but I tried it just before we started recording, and it seems it's either too busy to be able to run the AI, or it's just kind of broken at the moment. So I'm going to have to talk through what I've done before, and I have some that prepared earlier. But basically, it's called Krea, Krea.ai, and they have this kind of, you upload a logo, any logo, it's any image, in fact, actually, not just a logo, and you can give it a prompt, and it'll redo that logo in the style of the prompt that you give it. So I tried to do before recording, I tried to do our Generations Apart logo in a Christmas festival theme, which I was hoping would do, also Christmas markets, Christmas lanterns and things like that. Unfortunately, I ran it a couple times and it didn't work. So what I'm gonna have to do is show you what I did earlier in the week, which, shameless plug, this is my band logo, PRD, and I put in a prompt. This is the logo. I put in a prompt to do like a kind of Warzone style image alternatives of it, or like a cityscape kind of falling down. And there's a few images that came up. So as an example, so this is the normal image, and then I'll just scroll through a few of the examples. So I think this was the city one that it had originally, which it's an interesting style that it has for this. And there's also a little toggle on the website where you can do more of the logo or more of the AI image, and you can scroll it up and down. When you enlarge it like this, when you enlarge the images, it's actually quite hard to tell what the words were. It's one of these things that really works well as a thumbnail or as a small logo, because you can see the words a bit easier. But they're really interesting to look at, like up close. This is the kind of Warzone oil field kind of vibes going on here. Like this one, for example, really hard to read. You can't really tell that's
that one probably goes almost too far. I think
exactly.
You'd struggle. The other one's all very clearly with a logo. That one, I think, even knowing what I'm trying to pull out, I would struggle to mask the letters.
Exactly. I think you can just about read it when it's a really small image. But this one, again, that's one of the reasons why they have the dial, just to tone back using the logo more or not. And this is another one that's quite...
That one's cool. I like that one.
It's very cool, but you can't see the PRD in it very well. Maybe something in the lightning here, which is quite cool.
I think you can see a little bit better. Yeah, I was going to say there's more of an outline created around the letters in that one. It was a bit lost in the previous one.
Yeah. Another one that's
works.
Quite tough to read, but looks pretty cool.
Again, I think the R and the D pretty clear on that previous one.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think the P maybe gets a bit lost. Maybe I'm getting used to staring at those shapes now that you've shown me a few of them.
I know. Yeah, you put them
that
on.
one's easier. That one's easier to do.
Yeah, it's funny actually because you're watching this on a smaller screen as well, so I wonder if that's having an impact.
I'm watching it on a very small screen because it's on my teleprompter. So it's not even full screen on the teleprompter because of the way Discord chooses to full screen. So yeah, it's very, very small.
This one's probably my favorite. I think it's quite a cool one.
Yeah, that one's crystal clear.
Again, works really well.
That one doesn't seem to be pushing the boundaries quite as hard in terms of veering away from the logo. That's very, very clearly the logo.
Yeah,
and that's the last one.
That's the last one.
It's really cool.
Yeah, so quite a cool website. Upload a logo, give it a prompt, and then just see what happens. You can also, when you choose one of the responses that you like, because I think it gives you a selection of like 4 or 6, you can choose one of them, and then you can choose to animate it, which with AI animation, it's usually just having the images shift back and forward a little bit, giving a bit of depth to the images, but also quite cool that you can just choose your favorite and get that animated as well. When the website works. What I might do is I might try and get a version of this for the Christmas themed logo, and maybe we could stick it somewhere, maybe in the thumbnail or something like that for this video.
It's not my what's new this week, but just on the subject of AI, someone introduced me this week to the ChatGPT app's voice conversational functionality. I don't know if you've used it yet.
I haven't.
I don't think this is brand new, but it's new to me. So in ChatGPT's the mainline app, you can, on your phone, you can now go in, you can press the little headphone icon and it will pivot from text-based conversation to audio-based. So you can talk to it, ask you questions, and it will talk it back to you. Now, not revolutionary, it's incredibly quick, but the thing that really tickled me, and the reason someone told me I'd absolutely need to go and check it out, was that one of the AI voices is basically Scarlett Johansson. And you know she's got quite an attractive voice. I'm going to call it attractive rather than sexy because that feels weird. But she's got a very attractive voice, and you can basically turn your AI assistant into Scarlett Johansson and have her talk to you about whatever you fancy talking about.
Yeah.
I encourage you to try it.
It's a bit weird. That is a bit weird, but okay. I think that's
interesting, though. We did it with Olivia, and she found it as a child so much easier to engage with.
Yes.
Because she could just talk. She could just blurt out whatever she wanted. It would give an answer, and then she could have a conversational back and forth if she wanted, or she could go off in a completely different direction.
It feels like the natural kind of next step with the likes of Siri and Alexa and all the other systems that I've just set off in the background.
Yeah, I mean the sort of responses that were coming out of it. First of all, the speed really impressed me, but also the quality and just the text to speech. Normally that's really robotic. This sounded really quite natural for the most part.
They're getting really good these days, aren't they?
90 to 95% of the response sounded like it was being read by a human, albeit from a script, but it didn't sound like an AI. It was very impressive.
Well, this is what Meta's going to be doing with all their different Meta AI bots. Snoop Dogg is the...
It is, but it's initially text only, isn't it? So they're not doing
voice.
There
will be eventually doing voice, I think.
They will eventually, yeah. I mean, and then it's going to get super creepy. But
yeah, you're going to have all the celebrities in your pocket.
Yeah, literally. So, what's new with me? I'll tell you. I'll tell you. So I've got 2 little purchases that I made recently. One of them may be a good stocking filler for a family or a friend or a loved one, but I appreciate that as we're releasing this the Friday before Christmas, that may be pushing it a little bit, but your friendly Amazon driver may just be able to get you this in time if you hear it in time. This is, I'm going to pop it up on camera there. I don't know how well you can see that.
Oh, yeah.
This is the 8-Bit Do, or the 8-Bit Do is a company. It's called the Retro Receiver, and it's for PS1, PS2. As you can see from the picture, it is literally just the connector from the PS1, PS2 controllers from back in the day. Mm-hmm. And what it allows you to do is to Bluetooth to a modern controller and use your modern controllers on your PS2 or PS1. Now, it's particularly good for me because the PS2 is, I've still got my original PS2 from when I was 18. And although I'm happy with the wired controllers and I've got a couple of fully functioning ones, for sheer convenience and tidiness, being able to use a more modern controller is great. Now, I hooked it up initially to my PS4 controller to try it out, and that worked really well.
Nice.
And the PS4 still retains the form factor of the PS2 controller.
I was thinking that, yeah.
So it still feels good, whereas the PS5 has obviously taken a slight step away from that. But this was about, I think it was like £17 or £18, so not mega, in order to bring your modern controllers to your old retro consoles. So that's my first one.
Not bad.
Now the second one is phone related. Now I've been going caseless for a little while.
Brave.
That has now stopped.
Oh.
Because I have purchased this. Now this device is called the Small Rig Mobile Video Kit for iPhone 15 Pro Max. And what it is two things. First of all, it is a chunky ass case. So that is what my phone now looks like in that case.
Wow. Okay.
Very big, very bulky, solid metal.
Well, it's more like a bumper though, right? Because it's just going around the edges, almost.
Yeah, but it covers a lot of the back.
Yes.
I mean, if my wallet was off, it's got it around the camera lenses, the bits that are important. What makes this so impressive is that you couple it, let me find it on my desk, with this, which is the little clip that attaches to it. It's a quick release, so if I just do that, I've now got a much smoother hand grip for my phone.
Very good.
I can take that off and put that on any side I like, however I want to shoot. It also has on top of it a detachable wireless trigger, so I can connect that to the phone via Bluetooth, and I can turn do the shutter on and off either in hand without having to touch the screen, or I can take it off and use it mobile. The other thing that's nice about this is that have you heard of the company Small Rig before?
I think I might have, yeah.
So Small Rig do a whole range of these sorts of devices for your camera. So my digital SLR that I'm filming on right now is in a Small Rig. And what it allows you to do is it's like a modular system that lets you bolt things onto your camera, whether that's things that they produce like handles, grips, cages, or other third-party camera devices. So if I take something like my little Rode wireless microphone, it's got a hot shoe adapter, slides in, and there it is, straight attached to my camera.
Clever.
I can put lights on it. It's got screw threads all the way around, so I can attach tripods or other similarly threaded camera accessories. And basically you can just build out your device and turn it into a full recording rig.
Impressive.
So there you go.
That's very impressive.
So,
I like that.
Yeah, and that was around, I think it was 80, but at the moment, as I'm talking right now, I can't say that this will be the case when it publishes. There was a 15% voucher you could apply on Amazon that got it down to around 60 odd pounds.
That's not bad at
all,
really, I suppose.
Not really bad not bad for a case. It's very easy to get out. It's got like a quick release, so it just pops off the top.
Oh, right. I was going to ask about that because
it slides in and out. Very, very easy.
Is it a case that you'd want on all the time? That's the question.
No, probably not all the time. I mean, I don't mind. I mean, obviously, it's already a big phone. This makes it significantly bigger and heavier. It is chunky because it's solid metal. But I've had it in the case now for probably about just under a week since I got it, and I haven't taken it out of the case. And I've been fine with it in my pocket, so I haven't bothered to take it out. It's a reassuring amount of protection because, as you say, if you drop it, it's going to be well protected. But you have the option to pop it in and out depending on how you're feeling. So I just thought I'd share that as a couple of little pre-Christmas gifts to myself. Maybe the second one's a little bit more pricey, but if you've got a photography enthusiast, they do those for all sorts of different phones. It's not just the iPhone 15, but the 8-bit dual receiver for your retro lovers.
Yeah, I'll make sure to include both of those links in the description of the video as well, so you can check them out. But yeah, very cool. I like that.
So let's get into the show itself and the format. So what we're going to do, Robbie and I have sort of racked our brains, gone back into our mind palaces and tried to find those Christmas memories of tech or gaming or both where they mix. And we wanted to just talk a bit about those things that we remember, share our stories, or those little anecdotes about those items, and just have a relaxing back and forth, basically. And if you remember any of these things and they bring back memories for you, or if you've got particular memories of things that you enjoyed at Christmas, I'd really personally like to hear about them in the comments. I'm sure Robbie would love to read them too. So please feel free to share. I'm going to take you back, though, Robbie, as a starter for 10, to the early 80s, to little James, and a Christmas present I received, which I am thinking very, very loosely fits into the category of tech and or gaming. I will say this is as tenuous as any of my things get. They're much more mainline after this. But I wanted to tell you about it because it's both a funny Christmas memory for me, because I've seen it And I remember it, but I've also seen it in family footage as well. But there's a techish angle to it, and this is the early 80s, so this actually came out, I think, 84 to 86, according to a website that I found, and I've shared that link with you, Robbie, so feel free to open that if you want to show any visuals of it on screen. But this is a product called Build a Better Burger. And it's a board game of sorts, and I loved this as a kid. So basically what it came with, and you can see on the pictures there, is you had this tray, and you would all sit on one of the sides of this square tray. You would have a menu item for your specific burger, and the menu item and the elements that constituted your burger. So bun, lettuce, cheese, the patty, tomato, whatever. Each burger was different, and the central column would rotate with your menu item on it, as well as the other three people you played with. And what you had to do was build your menu serving in your little tray, your little takeaway tray, before everybody else, but making sure that you accurately matched your burger order. So your card might have had a bun, lettuce. I can try and read one here. I think there's like a burger, cheese, gherkins, and a lower bun. And then there would be certain fries or a type of accompaniment and a certain milkshake. You had to get all of that assembled before your rivals.
Nice.
I don't know that I played it a huge amount, but for some reason it's a game that sticks with me in my mind. So it's a little bit gaming. It's slightly techie in that it had some sort of technology-based mechanism from the 80s that drove it. It used to have this horrible clunking sound. It used to clink, 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 as this thing would rotate.
It looks like it would make that sound.
It was. But I loved it. I used to call it Build a Better Burger, because for some reason at the age I received this, I couldn't say it properly. But I loved it. And I just wanted to share it. It's very tenuous. It doesn't really link to the full theme of the show.
I love it.
And everything else, I promise, is more techie. But
this
I wanted to start with probably one of my earliest memories of techie gaming.
You know what this reminds me of? You ever played Overcooked? Kind of like that.
Yes.
But the analog,
it's
analog Overcooked.
Analog Overcooked. Yeah. I love Overcooked as well.
Me too. Yeah.
It's setting us all up for a life in McDonald's.
Yeah, true.
True. In fact, randomly, I was in McDonald's last night after a concert, and I was talking to a friend who's also in tech, and we were saying, now that your ordering process in McDonald's is automated, it surely isn't going to be too long before you do away with all of the serving staff altogether, and there's just machines behind a screen assembling the burger, sticking it in a bag, and putting it in front of you with a number.
Yeah. Vending machines. Vending machines. That's what they do a lot in Japan, right?
Macca's is going to become exactly that. So there you go. There's my, and that, like I said, that I don't know the exact Christmas. I'd have been, if it was 84 to 86 that it was released, then I would have been somewhere between the ages of 1 and 4 then. I suspect it was the latter end of that, if not slightly after, in terms of when I perhaps got my hands on it.
It reminds me of
I would have been like 3 to 5-ish.
The classic board games that you would get at Christmas, like Connect 4 or Buckaroo was a big one that I used to play as a kid, or Operation, those kind of games that had the kind of physical element to them.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I like that.
Over to you.
So mine, in doing my kind of mind palace research for this, I was trying to think back to the super, super early Christmases when I got like techie and gamey stuff. And as I said, we did a lot of board games. Christmas was always kind of board gamey. But the things that I was really into as a kid was like lots of MP3 players. I always used to get a new MP3 player pretty much every year. And back then they weren't great quality, so they used to break by the next Christmas, which is why I pretty much got a new one every year. But also like things like CD players. I think I got one of the old CRT TVs ones for my room back then in the day as well. But and a camcorder, a black and white camcorder that we used to hook up to the TV, and we were kind of geeky little kids, and we did little shows. We had like puppets and stuff, where we did shows and record them and stuff. It sounds, in retrospect, even nerdier than this podcast with the gaming and tech. But the other thing that we had was, have you heard of a Talk Boy? You heard of one of those?
Have I heard of a Talk Boy? It's Christmas. It's Home Alone. And Home Alone is all about the Talk Boy.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. There's a Talk.
Yeah.
You know, I never actually realized that it was in Home Alone until I did research for it.
Famously in Home Alone.
I know. Well, it's because it looked very different to the one I had. And this is, I think, the only link I managed to get up for any of my Christmas memories. But this is the version of the Talk Boy that we had, which I'm just going to bring up on screen now, was a blue one. And it was a blue kind of see-through one. And this is the exact model that we had, and I was shocked to realize that it's up on eBay and other websites for $1,000 now. So because it's very kind of collectible and retro.
Get back to your mum's, get up the loft, and find that boy. If it's still there.
If it's still there.
Honestly, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. The Talk Boys, I know they're collectible because there's a few YouTubers that I watch who track them down. And the standard ones are expensive, but the rare ones, like this, the unusual colours, anything that deviates from the classic silver.
Well, the standard one, £60. $60. Yeah. That's not bad. But yeah, this Dulux kind of blue one apparently is.
It's because really so few would have been made, and even fewer will have survived, isn't it? That's and because they don't directly mirror the film, there probably weren't kind of production of these things going on beyond as a memorabilia item.
Yeah.
Because they don't match the movie, so to speak.
I realised for the audio listeners, I haven't explained what Talkboy is. It's essentially
you don't know, and you're watching this. What are you? I think if you're listening to this show, you probably know what a Talkboy is. But go on.
It's essentially a handheld recording device. You put tapes in them, and it has this little stem that you can pull out and push back in, and that's the microphone. So you can go around and like put it in people's faces if you're interviewing people and things like that. So that's what I used it for, is just kind of going around and recording things with my brother and going around the house and recording people. And it also had a speaker in, so you could play back kind of tapes as well. Very, very cool device. I can't actually remember, what's the scenes? Is it the film that he records the Talkboy stuff and then he plays it back? Literally just watching Home Alone.
Certainly in the second film, I remember it more. He uses it to trick the hotel into booking as his dad. So he records himself and then slows it down to sound deeper voiced, and books his hotel room with it. I can't remember what he uses it for in the first film. If indeed it features, it must do.
Was it the when he records the film? You know the.
Well, no, because I think he plays that back.
He does just play the film, doesn't he?
Yeah, he just plays it back.
Maybe this is why I don't remember, because I never. Well, I have seen the second film, but I watched the first film all the time, so I know that one much better.
I wonder if it was in the first film. You've got me questioning now. I know for a fact it was in the second one. Maybe it wasn't in the first one. It featured heavily in the second.
But there you go. This is one of my super early Christmas memories of a kind of tech.
It's funny, angle. Yeah. I've stuck, like you have in terms of your item, but you mentioned a few other things there in and around Christmas. I have stuck religiously to things I remember being a gift. Yep. But as you say, I have strong memories of camcorders at Christmas, although I suspect ours were slightly different to yours, which had, ours were tape-based, and I've got the tapes somewhere. And in fact, I've got a kit somewhere in one of my many IT gadget boxes, which allows you to convert analog to digital. And in the past, I've gone through and filmed those things and record them to digital to share them with family, so they're not lost forever, because obviously they're very old now.
Yeah.
But yeah, this stuff still works, and it fascinates me.
Well, interesting you say that. The camcorder I had, I remember it distinctly. It was a black and white one, and I don't actually think it had an ability to record, weirdly. I think it was one of these ones that you had to plug it into your TV and then record it through VHS or something through your TV. Very weird setup. Yeah, it was a very strange thing. I don't remember any tapes with it at all.
I remember my granddad buying a camcorder when we were young, and then I think he bought our family camcorder as well that my dad then used, and it was solely to capture us. It was just for those Christmas moments. So with a lot of the videos we've got, and if I'd gone back and watched them, and perhaps it would have been fun to have clipped some of those, but literally us at Christmas, just kind of unwrapping presents, playing with stuff on the day, a bit of footage between, milestone points in the day, which is nice to go back and watch and see when, we were a kid. I should have watched some of that for research. I might have remembered more. But so I'll move on to my next one then. I don't have my original, but I do have the item in question, and it is this. So I don't. My memories, games wise, are around Nintendo. Right. Unsurprisingly.
Oh yeah.
Specifically Super Nintendo and then the N64, which we'll talk about. But this is Killer Instinct on the Super Nintendo. Black cartridge. Always loved the black cartridge. It felt very cool.
It does look cool.
I remember this because the day that on the Christmas that we were given this, my brother also had, I think it was something like International Superstar Soccer or something to that note, some sort of football game. He always had the football games. And there was two things I remember. First of all, I remember opening all of our presents on Christmas Day and they weren't there. And we weren't disappointed as such. We had some great stuff, but there was that kind of, I thought we were getting a Super Nintendo game. That was kind of the main thing we'd asked for, but not wanting to look ungrateful. You didn't say anything about it. But then my dad had basically done a treasure hunt.
Oh, okay.
And the games had been hidden. And then we were given a clue, and we just had to run around the house trying to solve these clues to eventually find what led us to our games.
Love that.
And they ended up being, I think, in the porch between the front door and the main external door. And I remember finding them. And then the second part of that memory is I remember specifically, because we only had one Super Nintendo, of course, like any normal house would, we had to split our time. So we both got games for the same console we wanted to play and play together. So I would play the soccer game with Stuart for a little bit, my brother, and then we would swap, and I'd put my game in, play that for a little bit with me, and we would swap back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Interestingly, the other thing I remember about this game is that the edition I had was bundled with the soundtrack. So it was a CD of all the music from the different levels in the game, which I used to listen to a lot as a kid. I still have it somewhere. I'm almost certain that so although I had to rebuy the game, I still have the CD somewhere. I'm confident there's a box in my loft even now, which has a bunch of my old CDs in, which is relevant later on again. And I think that CD's there somewhere. But anyway,
nice.
And it's quite collectible because for people trying to get a complete version of early Killer Instinct, the CD's the hardest thing to find. So it's probably got some value attached to it that I'm not aware of or missing out on.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Fair
Killer
enough.
Instinct on the Super Nintendo.
Nice. I like that one. Okay, so back to me. The one thing that I remember quite a lot as a kid was we did get video games. So we had, in terms of consoles, I'm trying to think about what I got for Christmas. It was mostly games for certain consoles rather than actual consoles themselves, but super, super early games. I'm pretty sure I got this for Christmas, or I remember playing it a lot at Christmas. Was we had a very old PC set up, Windows 99, and we used to play Unreal Tournament 1999. Is something that we used to play around Christmas as well. It's not a very Christmassy game. I don't know why it always reminds me of Christmas, but we had a separate room set up where we had the computer in, and we called it the den because it was like had all our games and stuff in there as well. And we used to go in there and we used to play Unreal Tournament 1999. Do you remember playing that game?
I did not. So I do fondly remember our PC room, or the computer room as you refer to it. We also had a computer room, which was
a thing back
kind
then,
of the ours was what was previously a very small kitchen in the house that we used to live in. Before our kitchen, we had like an extension built on the back of the house when we were young. So I remember our PC living in that little room. That was the computer room, and there'd be just enough room for 2 chairs, which was just enough for me and my brother to cram ourselves in around Football Manager, or Champ Manager as it was back then. But no, I never played Unreal Tournament. I was honestly more console than PC when it came to gaming. I'll talk about PCs of my own shortly, but no, never played Unreal Tournament.
Oh, it was a fantastic game. Very early graphics. 1999 was, I think, the Game of the Year edition, so I think it probably even came out before that. I remember playing the 1999 version and just having a lot of fun. It was I think it was mostly single player. So it was like a team deathmatch, and they actually had like AI bots that you would play against as well. Later on, we managed to figure out how to like connect it to other PCs so you could play together and things like that. But it was very much just going through. I don't remember a campaign, but I remember lots of team deathmatches with AI bots and just going around and lots of shooting. I was going to say,
from what little I know of that game, I don't think it had a campaign.
No. Great game though, and actually. Well, I think this is one of the later ones that I'm bringing up on screen here, but it just have a split screen. But there wasn't one on the PC back then. It was very much just kind of single player, and you would just swap around. Once you've died or once you played a match, you would just pass it on to probably my brother that was playing with me.
Not knowing the exact history, I'm making some assumptions here, but isn't the Unreal Tournament is built in what went on to become the Unreal Engine, which of course now is world famous and used for not just gaming but movies, but the Unreal Tournament back then would have been the early versions of the Unreal Engine, the birthplace of that technology, I assume.
I think that's right. And I think eventually, although I'm not sure this is how it was born as a game, it ultimately ended up being like a demo for the best quality, or what the Unreal Engine was possible, what was possible with the Unreal Engine. So it became like the flagship game. I think that's probably why I didn't have a campaign, is it was mostly just about, what's possible with the graphics, Unreal Engine and turning it into a deathmatch.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah, I never played it. Passed me by that one. As did Doom, really. I remember installing Doom a handful of times on various PCs as a child, but never really getting very far on it.
Yeah.
Didn't really grip me, but yeah, I mean, I guess I'd have been a bit older when original Doom came out compared to you'd have been very, very small when original Doom came out, I assume.
Or even born. When was...
All right.
When was the original Doom?
I don't
remember?
know. No.
Okay, well, here's a test for you.
Like I said, I wasn't on the hype train. I just remember it being on like a compilation dodgy copy of a disc that I'd got, which had this installer for a bunch of games on. I think we got a hold of it through someone's dad at work, you know, one of those kind of get you a dodgy Skybox, get you a dodgy disc with games on back in the day. And it had Doom, Worms, a game called Descent, which I really liked.
Yeah.
A 3D kind of space adventure. That was quite cool. But I don't know when Doom came out.
Any guesses?
I'll let you. I'm going to go 97.
Ooh, no, earlier, 93. So I wasn't born.
Wow.
It was a year before I was born.
Wow, that would have been 10. So it wasn't age appropriate for me when it came out. In fact, I wouldn't have had a PC at
I wasn't
point,
age appropriate when I was playing it, to be fair.
No. Well, I wouldn't have even had a PC at that point, but I'll come on to that.
Yeah.
So for me, the next memory is memory of handheld games. I don't remember exactly how old I was. It would have been before I was 10. We were due to go to Disney World in Florida. We didn't know. It was a family holiday. It was intended to happen, and then for some reason, and to this day, I've never really dug into why that holiday didn't happen. So our parents, on a fairly short notice, pivoted to some new handhelds for us for Christmas, which was obviously fantastic. We were very lucky. My brother had the Game Boy, and I got the Game Gear because it was deemed then by my parents that the colour screen, the visual fidelity was going to be more engaging for me at that age. It'd be better games, you know, Sonic instead of Tetris or whatever. So I ended up with a Game Gear. Unfortunately, I made a very bad decision maybe 10 or 15 years ago to sell that. And I had a perfectly good condition Game Gear with a bunch of accessories and quite a few games. And I sold it, and I do regret it. Although as consoles, they're riddled with problems now. You'll see a lot of repair channels trying to fix them because they have all sorts of capacitor issues and stuff like that. But it was Sega's attempt to try and muscle in on the handheld market.
Yeah, when did this come out? You know,
I don't know the exact date it came out, to be honest. And I remember quite a lot about my Game Gear. I must admit, I used it a lot. Although in hindsight, the Game Boy games were arguably better. I had Sonic on it. I had some sort of Disney one with Donald Duck in. I had one called, I think it was like Afterburner, which I really liked.
Yeah.
One of the things I do remember is it was one of these consoles in this generation where obscure accessories were made for it. So there were two things I remember. There was a TV tuner, which I never owned but always wanted.
What? Which
allowed you to plug in this device in the back and then tune into TV channels.
No way.
Yeah, I think it's at the top of the screen you're looking at now.
I think I just saw it, yeah, actually. I didn't know what that was.
That was a real thing. Yeah, that was a real thing.
There it is.
So you could tune into a TV. The other thing that I did have was the Master System adapter. So it had this bolt-in cartridge. Now bear in mind the cartridges for this thing would have been a couple of inches wide by a couple of inches deep, if that. The Master System games were more akin to a Super Nintendo cartridge in size. So the adapter that used to plug in the back looked ridiculous. But I do remember renting a handful of really crappy old Master System games from my local video game store and then using them in the back of my Game Gear at the time. I never owned a Master System. This was the closest I ever came. But I loved my Game Gear. I had lots of games for it. And it worked absolutely fine up until the day I sold it. But in hindsight, the Game Boy was probably the better device, despite the fact that on paper the specs not being as good.
Yeah.
So
very cool. I can't believe I had a TV tuner. That's actually blown my mind.
I know, it's ridiculous.
I actually did have a Sega Master System growing up, believe it or not. I think it was maybe my dad's or my brother's. Definitely
pretty old by the time you got to it then.
The Sega Master System. So I think when did it come out? Late 80s?
Well, it was the NES. It was competitor to the NES, wasn't it? So it would probably have had to have been mid 80s, mid to late 80s. Because I think the NES was made when I was born in the early 80s. So maybe mid 80s. I think the Mega Drive followed the Mega Drive follow the Super Nintendo. I think it must have done.
Yeah, this is the one I had. I had a version 1989.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually,
First release, so.
Yeah, 1985 in Japan.
I was going to say, yeah.
North America is 1986. Europe 1987. So.
Oh, there you go. I remember I had a friend who had one, and I did play a few games on it. I was never that impressed with it compared to.
I quite liked it.
We
had
NES.
Paperboy. We had
Altered Beast. I think I played on it. Maybe.
Oh no, I don't remember. I remember playing Spider-Man.
Really?
Really early Spider-Man. Yeah,
that was rough.
It was pretty rough. Let me see if I can get some images for it.
I think I remember that game.
Also, if it looks like I'm struggling to type, it's because I did spill quite a bit of wine on my keyboard just in between the intro.
Go and check out our short, because that's 100% going to be this week's short.
And now it's adding extra letters as I'm typing, which is a lot of fun.
Nice.
A lot of fun. There you go. Some images of it's very small there. See if I can get a zoomed in version. Spider-Man.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty.
That is rough.
I remember it was one of these games, and it was this exact scene for those watching on YouTube. That we would play this game, and we would get to a certain point, and we just wouldn't know what to do, how to get to the next point. It was basically we needed to get into a window after crawling up a building, and there was no instructions on how to get into this window, so we had to play the game over and over again, and eventually we just button mashed it and got in this window. But it took us ages.
But that was so many games of that era were just with that way. You didn't get in games these days do make very good job of guiding you, hand holding to some degree. Games back then just didn't have that, and were incredibly difficult. If you, like you said, you didn't know what you needed to do, and of course you didn't have the internet to hop on to go and find out from somebody else what to do.
You might be lucky and get a magazine or a book, like a guide.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Nintendo had the Nintendo helpline, didn't they, that you could ring to get advice?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool back in the day.
Yeah. That was in their documentary, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. So, what about you? Over to you.
So, other things. The one thing I do remember getting for Christmas is, and I don't know if you remember the hype around it at the time, but the Wii. Do you remember when the hype around the Wii for Christmas was?
I very much remember the hype around the Wii. I remember paying a fairly extortionate amount of money to get someone off someone on eBay.
Yeah.
In run up to that Christmas. I would say extortionate. It wasn't mega. It was a little bit more than asking price. But I bought mine second hand with a handful of games, and awesome.
Yeah, great console. I remember getting it for Christmas. I'm pretty sure it was for Christmas. But it was one of these consoles that, because we were quite a gaming family, we used to play lots of like board games, or we play card games, or what have you. It was just the perfect console for the family. We'd play Wii Sports a ton. And I can't remember, I think we played it maybe at a friend's house beforehand, and then we decided to get it as like a family thing for Christmas. And we also got, at the same time, the Wii Fit. I don't know if you remember the Wii Fit, but it came with it had a balance board that it came with.
I've got my old balance board in a bag back there. It's awaiting a bloody good clean because it's filthy. But yeah, I remember the balance board repeatedly telling me I was overweight. I loved that.
Yeah, they were pretty brutal. I remember it being pretty brutal because it would give you like a fitness
your
age
Wii
and everything.
Character would bloat in line with your weight, and you'd be like, "Oh man, that's depressing."
So mean, and it would give you a fitness age as well, and it was always like really mean with that as well. It would tell you like you're in your 60s when you're 20s or a teenager.
With fat boy, you need to lose some weight.
Brutal, absolutely brutal.
Put down the controller and go for a jog. Yeah.
Great game though. I mean, Wii Sports was fantastic as well. You remember the golfing and the bowling? And...
I think Wii Sports just had a moment, didn't it? Like that had people, or the Wii in general had people playing games that just never played games, and probably never played games again, but they bought a Wii. I knew people who had Wiis that just weren't into games at all.
Well, exactly.
That was the intention. Like if you go back and watch any of the documentaries about the Wii, the reason that the Wii Mote is shaped like a remote is not an accident.
Yeah.
It's because it doesn't have the intimidation factor of a controller.
Yeah.
It is simple. It's a handful of buttons. It's point and shoot like a remote that everyone at the time was used to.
Yeah.
And in order to play the games, you just had to move. I remember at work, we had a breakout room. They put a Wii in that, and a lot of the managers used to go in there and just kind of play the Wii tennis and stuff like that. And it'd be hilarious watching those who didn't game versus those who did.
Yeah.
Because any of us who knew how to play knew that all you had to do was
flip moving very little.
Yeah, just to get the best possible shot, and everybody else there doing like full on tennis shots and serving a proper tennis shot. Cracking console. What do you remember having with it then? Was Was it the balance board and Wii Sports specifically? Were there any other games?
It was one of these consoles that, like as you say, it was a strange one because my mum didn't play video games, but this is the one thing that she played a lot with us as a kid. And I was always amazed that Wii Sports always came bundled with the console. Always came with the console. It was fantastic. So we played a lot of Wii Sports, and then again, I think we tried the Wii Fit board at someone's house, and it's basically just an extension of Wii Sports, just extra sports and an extra kind of way of interacting with the system with the kind of balancing board. And for those that haven't seen it or played it before, it essentially looks like a set of digital scales with a split down the middle where you can lean left and right on these scales, and you can do things like skiing down slaloms, and you can do there was like a goalkeeper game where you would lean left and right to make sure you headed the ball out of the goal as you were getting shots fired at you. You could do hula hooping, which is what was brought up on here as well, where you would lean left and right and start to shake a bit. These are the games that I remember playing a lot around Christmas, and it was because it was just such a game that brought the family together, and so I have really fond memories of this over Christmas. But other games, I don't really had much. I tell you, I did get a game later on in the year, which was the Guitar Hero 3 for the Wii, which was great. But really, we didn't have that many games for it because we just loved playing Wii Sports and Wii Fit.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did. I think it was Reggie Fils-Aimé, who was a former Nintendo of America president, I think. He's done a book, and in there he tells various stories as well as kind of life lessons, and he talks about the Wii U. And I don't think sports was originally going to be bundled. He influenced that decision. And I think it might even have been a European and North American thing. I'm not entirely sure the Japanese Wii came bundled with it.
Really?
At least not initially. This was what they did to launch and really sell this through into those regions. So, like I said, I might have to fact check that, but I'm pretty sure that's what I remember reading. But a really great book, I have to say, as well. If you're just interested in leadership and management techniques mixed with some Nintendo history and some fun Nintendo history. Yeah. So, Reggie Fils-Aimé, it's a really good book. We had, so I had the other game I remember on the Wii particularly fondly was WarioWare, which has done various iterations of since, and they do a version on the Switch. And it was basically a bunch of ridiculously frantic mini games that got increasingly faster and faster. It would have you holding the Wii remote against your head like an elephant, or shaving your nose hairs, or running on the spot, or swatting things out the air. But they were all like crazy, slightly crazy art styles, but it was all done very quickly. And then you'd pass the remote to somebody else. They'd have to do theirs really quickly, and then you'd pass it on again. Really good fun. Really great game, again, just for kind of silly party games, speediness. Yeah. But like you said, nothing really touches the sports on the Wii.
I think I did have a Wii Was it an Olympics one? Or was it a Sega?
Mario and Sonic at the Olympics.
Mario and Sonic at the Olympics. That was a good one as well.
Yeah. So you did have some Nintendo games, Robbie. Look, you do have a bit of Nintendo history.
Yeah, I did.
Which leads me on to some Nintendo history. So the next one I wanted to talk about was, again, I reckon I would have been probably in my early teens because I'd have been at senior school still. I think it was the year of release that we had this. Don't know what that year was exactly, but I have the 3 original cartridges. So I had, or me and my brother had, I should say, from our loving grandparents, the Nintendo 64, and at the time, which came with like a bundle with a additional third-party controller, which I still own but hate and never touched. So I always had the first-party controller, and my brother, who was younger than me, always got the third-party one, which wasn't as good, in my personal opinion. And we had it with 3 games, and those 3 games were these 3 cartridges, and they are the original ones from my childhood. Ooh. So first one is Super Mario 64, a game I still love to this day. I remember just having my mind blown by the idea of a 3D Mario, just what you could do in that world. And I still, to this day, get a real big smile on my face on the very first level when you're ascending the mountain and you have to dodge past the balls that come rolling down on the edge of this kind of circular path surrounding this pedestal you're ascending, and just thinking it was like the coolest thing trying to dodge these balls. Going back now, it's super easy to do, but when you've never seen that before, you've gone from 2D to this. It was just like, wow, just is incredible. The other game I remember very fondly is Mario Kart 64. I think this is still possibly the best Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Many will argue otherwise.
That's debatable.
I loved the Super Nintendo one, played a lot of that, but Mario Kart 64, it's nostalgia talking. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I wouldn't die on a hill on it. But I played so many hours of this with friends during lunch breaks from school, evenings, weekends, sleepovers, you name it. 4-player Mario Kart split screen, just some of the best times. And then the last one that also falls into that bucket but has a brilliant single-player campaign, of course, is GoldenEye, which still has my original save game on it, as far as I'm aware. This, again, just loved this. I remember playing so much of this game. And those 3 games together were some of my favourite times on the N64. So,
cool.
Yeah, and me and my brother played a lot of that. Me and my friends played the hell out of it, and would do for years to come, I should say. That was probably my senior school years, the N64, because we would go at lunchtimes to a friend's house. He'd got the 4 controllers already, and we would sit down and play any number of those versus modes, whether it was Mario Kart 64, GoldenEye, Lilac Wars, or Star Fox 64 if you're in the US. We would play things like Mace the Dark Ages, which is some crappy two-person fighting game. We played the hell out of all of the wrestling games that THQ made, WCW versus the World, WCW versus NWO Revenge, WrestleMania, No Mercy. We played the absolute death out of those. So, yeah, massively fond memories of the Nintendo 64, which all started one Christmas for me and my brother.
Nice. Great games. I do remember playing GoldenEye. I can't remember when. It really wasn't I don't think it was my era, really, but I remember playing it. Maybe at like friend's house, or sometimes you'd find it in like a kids club kind of thing that you would go to, and they might have like a console.
Really, not an appropriate game to have in a kids club, considering it did have blood effects, and it was all about guns.
I don't know.
I probably shouldn't have had it at my early teens.
Back
really,
then, it's not. Did they really?
Oh, I mean, it's not age rated. At least the cartridge isn't.
I was going to say, I don't think they worried about it that much, because it was so unrealistic as a game. Like, it's not hyper realistic as it is today.
Yeah, you say that. You go back though, the guns, there was no messing about. When you fired the Soviet, whatever it was, it would leave bloodied marks all over your enemy, and you could run up to those opponents while they're on the floor dead, and you could just literally rattle off a whole clip in them and just colour them in basically with this red hue. It
Sounds
was
like something
dark.
you did.
I may have done that more than once.
I don't remember doing that myself, but there you go.
It was certainly gory enough to be rated. Like you said, though, it was a different time. Games weren't as regulated as they are now. I certainly reckon that would have carried at least some sort of teens age warning. It wouldn't have ended up in a kids club, but hey ho.
Nice.
Or ho 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 even.
Ho ho ho.
Given the show.
Okay. Right, so I've saved the best to last, and this is my last one. And I say that because...
wow, I've got more.
Well, you'll have to just stop me, because this might be a long one. Basically, when you told me about the episode concept, I was like, oh, this is really cool, this is really exciting, because last year, my mum messaged me saying that she'd gone through my old bedroom. I think there was still some stuff in there, or even the attic, or the study where everything got dumped. And she found like a bunch of old stuff that I had, like collectible stuff that I had. And one of the things she found was, and I basically completely forgot about this, is that when I was a kid, it was always about, you would get the Argos catalogue, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, and you would start circling things that you wanted. And without fail, every year, I would always go to the spy gadgets section of the Argos catalogue, and I was obsessed with spy gadgets. I used to love James Bond as a kid. I used to love Spy Kids, the movie. It's kind of corny when you look back on it now, but I used to love the idea of just spy tech stuff. So she handed it to me, and I took it back, and I had like a night of going through it. That was like last year, and I haven't really gone through it since, but I've got it here. Essentially, and I used to, it's really kind of cringy, but I used to bring it into school and do like show and tells with it. And this was my go-to thing. I had so much kit that I had to get a separate bag for it. This is the bag. This is my spy bag. And I'm going to grab at random a couple of things in here.
Well, here's a suggestion then, because I've still got a few bits to go. Why don't you do a gadget, and then I'll do a story, and then another gadget and a story, if you've got more than one thing to show.
Okay.
And we'll build up to the sort of the best gadget in the bag, if you can prioritize it. I don't know.
I'll do my best.
Do you have a favourite? I'm completely with you, though, while you're rifling through. Argos catalogue back in the day was one of the best things. It's the Smiths Toys catalogue for the kids of today. At least that's what my kids have got.
Yeah.
But I also was big into spy stuff. I don't remember having a huge amount of spy stuff as a kid. I remember having the Ghostbusters trap. I don't remember that. You'd have been way too young for that. So
I don't remember that.
It was a plastic trap, as you expect. You know what the Ghostbusters trap is, don't you? So
yes, yeah.
The box and then the pedal. Only the pedal was effectively a receiver, microphone, and the box was a speaker, which used to put like a ghostly effect on. Mm-hmm. So I would walk around the house, I would sneak the trap around the door into a room and sit the other side of the door and then go ooh down the headset and try and spook my parents, thinking it was hilarious. And of course they knew exactly what that cheap tinny noise was coming in the living room. It wasn't a ghost, it was clearly something coming from this trap.
That's the thing, is they were never like good no. They're always like cheap plastic, terrible microphone qualities. And
I think this is where the age gap shows more, because I suspect they moved on to a degree where they felt more like spy gadgets than perhaps when I would have had them.
Maybe. I don't know, because I'm looking at it and it's feeling pretty analog. But I tell you, I've grabbed one thing that I remember being particularly chuffed with when I was a kid and getting this. And it's, for those who can see on video, it looks like a little silver box.
That?
It's a heavily plastic box, but essentially it was a pen gadget. And I loved pen gadgets back then, and it had a bunch of different things that you could do with it. First of all, obviously, it was a pen, but you could also turn it into, I believe you could turn it into a telescope. So this little box has like a bunch of additional attachments that you can use to attach to the pen. So you'd have these little kind of microscope things. If you put them at a distance on top of the pen, you could turn it into a telescope, and like an actual working telescope as well, which is really clever. It had this. This looks like a candy cane, but like a clear plastic candy cane with a bit of UV light. It had a light in the pen, and if you stuck it in the end of the pen where the light was, and it curled round, the light would travel around the candy cane and then point down, so you could see where you were writing on the bit of paper in the dark. Again, I mean, who needs this? But I was just absolutely in love with it at the time. What else did I have? Another light kind of attachment to your pen. So yeah, I mean, it was just a cool pen toy.
I mean,
I think it even had.
Coming back to GoldenEye, I mean, you recall from the movie the exploding pen.
Yeah,
that plays its part at the end. Who didn't love a pen that did more than write?
It was such a like a spy trope, wasn't it? That you have to have like a multifunctional pen. I loved it, and I was all about that. So there's my first gadget then.
Loved it. I've got a couple of different stories, but I want to tell you a bit about my first PC. So I credit this, and in fact, unfortunately, my grandfather passed away this year, and he was 98, and he and my grandmother bought our first PC for me and my brother when we were young. Back when PCs were bloody expensive, so we bought it from a shop called Byte, BYTE, which ultimately became PC World.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me.
Which now is Curry's, for those who don't remember PC World.
Which has now become Curry's PC World, yeah. Or Curry's. So I remember I used to go into Byte fairly regularly. It had a big presence near us on a retail park. And I remember at this time going to choose our first PC. I think it was somewhere in the region of $2,500. And that's back in those days. It was a lot of money for not a lot of kit. I don't remember a lot about it. I was a teenager. Young teenager as well. Probably not long into school, senior school, so I'd have been maybe 12, 13 at best. It was a Pentium 133. It had a 4 gigabyte hard drive. I remember we had a decent size. I think it was like a 17-inch CRT monitor, big bulky thing.
That is big.
With speakers bolted to the side that stuck out like wings. The base unit itself was a desktop, flat top one that the monitor sat on, so it wasn't a tower. And then CD drive, disk drive, as you'd expect. And then we also had a printer, and that was the 2.5K bundle, basically. Wow. And I credit that with my career in IT, to be honest, because without that purchase, I would never have got into computers, or at least I wouldn't have had access to one. It was too expensive for my parents. That PC was the one that went into the computer room, gradually over the years would be upgraded and change shape. We'd get a tower and it would all be beige.
Beige.
But I used to do, so I had so much fun with that. I think it was Windows 95 when we had it, which tells you broadly around the era that it would have been. So I would have been about 12 or 13. And I used to sit there for hours messing with that thing, regularly making it slow and clunky and messy as hell by just manipulating the Windows sounds. It used to boot in, it used to play videos, it used to make stupid noises. It used to really annoy my
it was
family,
all about customization back then, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'd spend ages doing that. We eventually bought a scanner, and I had to install the scanner card, which was really messy and like worrying and scary because I was frightened of breaking it. But then we had the ability to scan things, and it was just fascinating me. I used to scan all sorts of stuff in. I remember, in fact, on that scanner, back in the day, in order to leave the school grounds to go for like a lunch breaks off premises, you had to have a lunch pass. And that pass had your face on. It was signed and, produced by the school. We had to have parents' permission, and my friend didn't have one, but he was the only kid in our little group who didn't have one. And I remember scanning my dinner pass in, his photograph in, making him a dinner pass. I laminated it with sellotape because I didn't have a laminator.
Nice.
And for about 6 months, he got away with that as his dinner pass. And used to leave the school grounds and go to our friend's house to play N64 on a lunch break.
That's impressive.
Without the need for his parents to know or any formal agreement with the school. He used to just flash it on the way out and go. So yeah, honestly, that first
you little
PC,
rebel.
that first PC was absolutely brilliant. And I just remember that being a really sort of pivotal Christmas present from a career point of view. Like, when you reflect on these things and you join the dots.
Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it, to go back and think about where these things started. But absolutely, that was the one for me. Had a random games on it. I think I had an Ace Ventura cartoon game on it. It was quite random. We had our first football championship manager for that PC, which spawned mine and my brother's love of that series for many years.
Yeah,
many hours spent, evenings and weekends rotating seats to take control of our team and do the transfers and whatever. Yeah, so that was a great one for me.
Nice. Yeah, that's good.
Let's dip back into your bag of goodies.
Well, I've just been slyly trying to unpack things, so I've got them out on the desk and I can pick some decent ones to chat about. There's one that I remember, which is just so overly plastic and overkill, and actually requires a little bit of putting together, which I'm definitely going to get wrong because I don't know how this goes together. Oh, there we go. It's essentially a listening device. It looks like a really...
Oh, wow.
Kind of like it looks over the top, doesn't it?
Is that dish on the right way around?
No, probably not. That was the bit of the kind of putting it together that I got wrong. But yeah, it's essentially, it looks like a big hand radar thing, and you press a button and it has a very kind of sensitive microphone that will start to pump out audio. And I think you can even take off this microphone thing, which has like a little suction cup thing, and it's got a cable to it as well, and you can attach that to a door or a wall and start listening through that. And it had an attachment for headphones as well that you can listen to whilst you're doing it.
Did it work?
If you believed it did, it did, Jay. That was most of what it was.
Okay, fair enough.
It was a very highly sensitive microphone, so you could hear a lot of things. You could hear a lot of things when you did it. And if you were extra quiet, you could hear things that were further away that you wouldn't be able to hear with your normal hearing. But it was so sensitive that if you breathed particularly loud, that's all you would be able to hear when you were up close to it. So, but I again, another kind of classic spy gear that I loved so much. I do have a lot, so I'll do two if you'll allow me the time just to go for another one. There was a theme with these where you would have things that you could look behind you without like giving it away. So I had some glasses with mirrors in the corners that would let you look behind you, but also...
Oh, I had a pair of those or something similar.
Yeah, if you can see, it's got the mirrors in the corners. Actually, you can't see how stealthy that is.
I know, I can see. Yeah, just about.
Yeah, so you could look behind you through the sunglasses as well. But there was also... These look like binoculars, which they are. You can have them as normal binoculars. But there's also a little kind of attachment on the front that if you close it, you're then only able to see behind you. So you can be like spying in front of you and also press a little button, a thing pops out and you're looking behind you as well. It's high tech, these spy gadgets, man.
Did you ever have like a periscope? I remember having like a periscope device
I think I
sit
did.
behind you better lift it up and you better see over the desk.
Yeah, I think I did.
But they were so ridiculously short, they were pointless, because if someone couldn't see the top of your head while you were doing it, then...
Yeah, lots of that.
So I'm going to mix a couple of different Christmas gifts together here and give you what has become a very weird memory for me. So It's going to start with this, which again is my original from childhood. Zelda, the Ocarina of Time, arguably one of, if not the best video game ever made. Many will argue that, although probably not by modern standards.
Baldur's Gate now, isn't
it? On that subject, that very touchy subject, IGN gave their Game of the Year to Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda.
Really?
I did. It very much surprised me. I thought they'd go down the Baldur's Gate route like many have, but they didn't. They went Tears of the Kingdom. Anyway, so I had this for Christmas one year. I think it was the year it came out. I was originally scheduled to have WCW versus NWO Revenge. I played it at someone whose house who'd had it early for Christmas, and although I enjoyed it, I decided actually I really wanted Zelda.
Yeah.
So I had Zelda for Christmas. I also had it, though, at the same time as a couple of other gifts, which have all kind of merged. So most of my stuff here, apart from the PC, has been very gaming related, but there was one piece of tech on this list that isn't gaming related. And I distinctly remember back in the day, my mini CD hi-fi system. Now, these were like all the rage when I would have been a teenager.
Kind of one that you'd have on your shoulder whilst you're going around on your rollerblades or skateboard.
No, not a boombox. No, these were for your room. So you'd have the mini hi-fi would be no bigger than a sort of small set of speakers, about that sort of size. The mini hi-fi would have your tape deck, a radio, and a CD player, just enough to have CD on top, tape, etc. And then 2 speakers, which would be you could position wherever you wanted. Mm-hmm. And I had these in my room, had them for Christmas, had them in my room, speakers either end of a fairly long cabinet, TV in the middle, little sound system, and my console. It was a great little setup, loved it. But that same year, as well as Zelda, I also had a new album. I had the new Fatboy Slim album at the time. That was his first ever album. It was back in the days of Right Here, Right Now. That was like the big song at the time.
Nice.
And I had the album. Didn't have many albums, but that was one of the few I had. And I've still got that somewhere, but it's in the loft. Otherwise, I would have dug it out for this episode. There was one track on it, which was a bit controversial. It was called Fatboy Slim is effing, I'm going to try and keep it family friendly, in heaven. And he literally just says it the whole way through. It's Fatboy Slim is in heaven. Fatboy Slim is in heaven. Heaven and fucking, well, I've just said it now, but there you go.
Good centric. Nice.
But that's the song. And I was very discreet about making sure my mum didn't look too hard at the track listing because I didn't want her to see that and say I couldn't have the album. I remember taking it upstairs and I remember putting that on as I started Zelda. And to this day, I cannot hear songs from that album without picturing the first opening levels of Zelda. And I cannot play the opening levels of Zelda without hearing some of the music from the Fatboy Slim album. Nice. Because those two things have become intertwined. They have like crossed as memories and become merged together. So whenever I'm sat playing Zelda, on the rare occasions I might turn it on, the opening levels where you're dealing with these like skull spiders and you're learning your basic maneuvers in this first dungeon, I just always think of that album. And likewise, if I ever hear those early tracks, that's where my brain goes. I imagine that bedroom scene, the CRT TV, Zelda, and that music playing on my mini hi-fi system. So weird Christmas memories kind of blending together.
I love that, though. I love it when music can bring you to... I mean, I did the same. I used to have music playing when I was a kid. I'm trying to think of any examples, but there's definitely songs I'll hear when it reminds me of video games. It's really nice when it marries the two together. Tony Hawk's is a good example, actually, because just the soundtrack on that thing, if I hear any of the songs that were on Tony Hawk's, it brings me right back to the game. But I love that. It's a really good one.
So I'm going to hand back to your bag of goodies.
Oh, God. I'm trying to think what to do now. Quick round. We've got a few smaller ones. This is a rock that actually has a little hidden safe in the back. You can just hide a rock in your room with hidden other tech stuff in there. I've got a notepad in here that if you hold a bit of plastic in front of it, you can see certain writing on it, which is quite cool.
Hidden messages.
Hidden
message pens the thing. Do you remember?
I've got like a UV pen.
At least I love those.
Yeah.
Olivia, my daughter's advent calendar is this year's a Harry Potter one, and it comes with a UV wand, that has a UV light on it, and then basically you have to move the wand around the sort of the front of the advent calendar to reveal the numbers on the doors to find the door to open. It's really cool.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think all of us who've seen that today have been like, whoa.
That's such a good idea. Yeah, secret messages, 100% was a big thing. I mean, I think I had like rice paper as well, so with like a pen that was specifically edible ink, so that you could write things on rice paper and then eat the paper. It was like destroying the message. Yeah, it got weird.
Remember those little birthday cupcakes you get at kids' birthday parties? So maybe they still do now, I don't know. But back then it would just have like printed cartoon characters and stuff on. Yeah. And it was exactly that. It was just rice paper and it tasted like shit.
Well, it doesn't taste good. No, it definitely doesn't taste good. But you're doing it for the spying, not for the taste.
That's true. Just to keep those messages completely secret.
Yeah. I had UV spy dust, which is like when you see like a CSI and they dust things for prints. It's like that, but it would show up anything that would be the UV. So if you had like, I used to have a UV pen, which essentially I think is just lemon juice in the pen, and if you write with lemon juice, it shows up as UV. So this, if you dusted it over that, would just show up. Kind of secret messages.
And if I think about secret writing in UV, it always makes me think of the film Gone in 60 Seconds. Please tell me you've seen Gone in 60 Seconds.
You know, I don't think that.
Right.
I think you mentioned this before as
well.
when
we said we were going to get together and we are going to catch up? That needs to be on the list.
What was the other one as well? Minority Report, I think was the other one I haven't seen.
Yeah, and that's a good one. You should watch that. But Gone in 60 Seconds is a go-to for me. I love that film. So they would keep their shopping list of cars that they would steal in the film was kept on a blackboard, but it was written in UV ink, and you could only see it under black light. So that's how they get caught out partway through the film when the detectives work it out.
Nice. I like that.
So I always love that kind of hidden message concept. When I was sort of growing up, I was thinking about kind of what tech and gadgets I had for Christmas, but phones and iPads and things like that were a little bit later in the day for me. They weren't things I had to ask for as a kid. I was already an adult by the time they were, going around. So, for example, my first mobile phone was a Motorola phone when I was 17, and I had it in college. So those weren't really things for me. But then moving forward, I was trying to think, well, what kind of tech and gaming gifts did I have as an adult? I've only got a couple of things left on the list here, but one that I wanted to call out, and the only thing I have left from it, in fact, is this. Now, this isn't going to come across particularly well on camera. I will try and bring it as close as I can. Tell me if it manages to focus.
Yep, it's in focus now.
So if you can see right in the middle of the controller, this is an Xbox One controller for those who don't know what I'm showing. Can you see the little inscription? You may not be able to read it. So
Day 1, 2013.
Day 1 edition. Yeah. So Christmas 2013, I had the brand new at the time Xbox One with Kinect, and I managed to get the Day 1 edition. Bit of luck, actually. Laura bought this for me. It's one of the few kind of elaborate, maybe over budget Christmas presents I've ever had, but it was a particularly special thing for me. I'd never had to that point a brand new console, and this was, at this point would have been weeks since its release, and we managed to get a pre-order for the Day 1 edition, which came bundled with, I think it was a driving game. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I don't have the console anymore because I shipped it on and replaced it with newer iterations of the console, but I couldn't bear to let go of the controller. Yeah, because the controller was the only thing that really had anything about it that told you it was Day 1. So weirdly, the controller had that little bit of inscription on it. Nothing about the console said it was Day 1, but you also got an unlockable achievement which only came from powering on this specific console. Ooh. So if you look at people with achievements on Xbox and they've got that particular achievement, they had a genuine Day 1 console, and you could only get them by activating your profile on that console in that window of time. So I always kept the controller just because I thought it was kind of the special one to keep. Yeah. But I don't have the console anymore.
But it'll be attached to your account though, right?
Oh, yeah, the achievement's still there. The achievement's still there, but I just don't have the console anymore. And then the following year, and she was very good to me again, although it wasn't the budget here, it was more the effort. I got this little fella. This is the NES Mini, or the Classic.
Nice.
Now, that came bundled with a bunch of classic Nintendo games. It was the first time anyone had done these kind of mini classic consoles, and it really took off. I think they underestimated its popularity. And Laura, bless her, basically had it on a stock tracking app. and she would track it across websites. And for weeks, without me knowing, she had been trying to get hold of one of these. And I'd got no idea. As far as I was aware, there was just no getting one. They were just complete like gold dust. And then on Christmas Day, I'd kind of gone through all my presents and family had done the same. And she pulled this little box out from behind the tree right at the very end. And it was my NES Classic.
Amazing.
I was over the moon with that. The following year, they brought out the SNES Classic, which they did much better job of stocking. Still difficult to get hold of. They still both carry a good price, but the NES Classic was a particularly memorable one for Christmas for me.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. And how do you play with it then? Do you plug it into like modern TVs?
Yeah. So it literally is powered by USB. So in this case, it would have been the micro USB at the time.
Nice.
So you've got USB-C to power it, and you can literally power it off another device, like out of a monitor or a PC or whatever. Doesn't require a lot. I think it's basically like Raspberry Pi technology inside it.
Oh, okay.
And then a HDMI out. Yeah, and then on the front, you've got your little reset button, which gets you back to the main menu, your power on and off, and then your controller ports. They did
the original controllers?
No, not the original controllers, but also some sort of weird bespoke connector. So, which was a bit of a bummer, but they did screw up slightly. The cables on those consoles were super short. Yeah. I think what they intended you to do was plug this into a monitor and play it on a desk.
Yes.
I don't think they expect you to put it on your TV and then sit back on the sofa and try and play, because the cables were nowhere near long enough, and it only came with one controller. I think they fixed that problem with the SNES and they shipped it with 2 controllers by default.
Nice.
But I did end up buying a couple of third-party longer cabled controllers as well. I'll be honest, it gets literally no use. It sits on a shelf looking pretty with the SNES Classic, the PS1 Classic, which everyone will tell you was dog shit. They charge £100 for that on release. It quickly dropped to around the £50 mark. It dropped then to a £30 mark. I had it on my Amazon watch list and it went for £16 on a lightning deal, and that's when I decided I would buy one, because I thought £16 was good for a shelf item. But and then I've also got the Mega Drive Mini.
Nice.
Which Sega officially did. There's a few of those, but Sega officially did one. So
very
the
cool.
NES Classic was the start of my minis journey. Before I got back into the original consoles and then bought a proper retro NES. So
that's what's up there, hooked up to the CRT now.
That's what's all hooked up now. Yeah.
Nice. Fair enough.
So I've only got one more on my list, but I'm going to hand back to you for another dip into your gadget bag.
Well, this is probably the last dip. I am running low on things to show you. I mean, the main things, I've got another listening device. This is another kind of, this was advertised as a kind of a something that you can leave in the other room and have your headphones under the door or something like that. Or you could it recommended putting a straw in the actual listening hole there and then pushing that through a wall or like a crevice through a wall or something like that. Very strange. Listening devices was a thing back then, though. Recording devices as well. So this is a pen that has a voice recorder on there.
Nice. Okay.
Which is very cool. And also cameras was a big thing. So hidden cameras. I had this one, which actually doesn't look that hidden now by modern standards. Oh, it's wrapped in a bunch of cables. But essentially, this is a camera, and it has a remote control that is powered by air. Believe it or not. So it's basically just an empty kind of tube, or an empty kind of, I don't know what you call it, like a air push button thing, like you would have like an air pump, basically. An air pump, that's it. And a camera that's attached on the other end, and if you squeezed it really hard, it would trigger the mechanism to take a picture. So you could leave this, again, theoretically, under a door somewhere, and on the other side you could have this tube and like start taking photos and stuff. And there's an actual like Kodak film in this that you could take random photos. So there's another kind of random one, and then there's another small camera here that you could have as like a little spy camera as well to take photos.
Isn't it funny to think how much of that's now redundant thanks to, like just smartphones?
Yeah.
And what kids have now got in their pocket. It's crazy, isn't it?
Crazy.
Loved
Back then, though, it was revolutionary to have this stuff just available to you.
They still do spy kits now. So my daughter had one last Christmas. It came with some glasses, which basically just had green lenses and were night vision, which obviously they did nothing, just make everything look green. There was like a torch in there. I think she had a listening device. The one that was most interesting, which I thought for sure you'd pull out somewhere, was like a motion activated, like an alarm basically. So you put this little puck. You're nodding like you've got one. You put this little puck somewhere that you expect, like maybe in your bedroom, do not enter kind of thing. And if someone breaks the laser, then it triggers the little siren to go off, and oh no, breach, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we got one of those.
I remember seeing those in the catalogue. I had them circled 1 year, but I think I went for other spy stuff. I did really want that. It was available back then as something that you could get, like a little laser thing.
They put that in over the years. They put those into all sorts of things, haven't they? I think even like toys and plushies have had motion detectors and
true,
all that kind of stuff. Break the beam kind of technology. Interesting. So,
the only other thing actually to mention very quickly is I must have signed up to something, and I've got a collection of these spy training handbook things. And these are like the classic magazine subscriptions that you would get back in the day, where they would send you a different one, and you might get like a little gadget with it as well. But it talks about how to be a spy, basically, and there's a big collection here.
I know there's a bit of a gap between us, so this may not have been a thing when you were young, but we used to collect something called the Tree of Knowledge, which was a similar kind of weekly or fortnightly subscription, and you used to get these binders, and then every week they would send you different, effectively like knowledge inserts from like an encyclopedia, and they'd be about the wildlife, geography, science, whatever, and you would gradually build your binders and your slotted divider areas with these knowledge articles. And it was funny because back in the day when I was at junior school and this was happening, almost we were convinced the teachers were basically setting homework based on what was in these sort of things, because quite often my homework would align with one of the more recent Tree of Knowledge things that I'd received. So I'd go to my dad's, where he was the one that was collecting them for us, and I'd go around, and then we would basically just flick through and be like, oh, here's the thing I got asked about lions this week, or here's the thing I got asked about, French capital city or whatever. It was really weird. But for several months I felt like I was almost cheating because I always had the answers.
That's the best kind of education, though, when you feel like you're cheating the teacher.
And we had a similar thing. I think it was back when Can't Cook, Won't Cook was popular, and they did a similar series where you would basically get like recipes in these little these weekly drops, and then you build your library of cooking recipes and stuff.
The moment in time when magazine subscriptions were a major thing. There was a one for everything, wasn't there?
I used to love a good magazine. I used to have things like Games Workshop. I used to have was it FHM? Was like the lads men's magazine.
Yeah.
Back in the day, For Him magazine. That's going back a long way. It wasn't like trashy nuts and stuff like that. It was meant to be a little bit more like, teach you how to be a man. In hindsight, it was trash. But stuff like that. Game magazines I used to love as well. Yeah. Still, I mean, I've said for a while, I'd love to get my hands on some old retro gaming magazines. If anyone who listens to us happens to be sat on a stack and doesn't know what to do with them, let me know and I'll send you a few quid. But if you try and go online and just buy, I don't even want a specific issue or anything. I just want a bundle of old gaming mags just to flick through and reminisce and go, oh, look at that, that's cool.
Yeah.
But like they go for sort of silly money because people sell individual episodes of certain magazine or issues of certain magazines. Yeah, and it means that just to try and get just a random bundle of God knows what from whenever, you can't do it because everyone's trying to sell the individual issues to build collections and stuff. So it's kind of prohibitive, but from a cost perspective.
Yeah.
Let me finish with my last one. Probably my most modern memory in terms of arcade machines. So I had, I've talked about this before, but I've got a couple of arcade one-up machines, which are the sort of 3/4 size arcade machines designed to look like their sort of previous counterpart. So I've got the Turtles arcade machine. I'd had that for a little while, and they then released the other one I'd always wanted was a Marvel one, and they brought out Marvel vs. Capcom 2, the cabinet, and it had a bunch of Marvel games on. I remember being really excited about that being announced, and then I think it was my mum actually very randomly one year, slightly off our usual budgets, decided to do a bit of a treat and pre-ordered that for me. So I guess my most recent Christmas. I mean, I've had games, don't get me wrong, in the past. Like you said, I've had a lot of games for Christmas, but just trying to remember all those individually. At this point, I think Assassin's Creed Odyssey was one of them. I've had Cyberpunk in the past, ironically, given how that tanked the Christmas it came out. That took 2 years before I actually ever played that game. So I've had a handful of games, but in terms of just something that was a standout, that arcade cabinet was a good one, and that now lives in our kitchen space, and
Nice.
both the arcade machines and the kids love it, and then their friends all play it when they come over, as do my mates. So it's nice now they're kind of in public viewing and public use. They used to live behind me. People might remember from early episodes of the podcast.
I love that. I've me and Christine have talked a lot about how if we get it's not really convenient in the house that we've got at the moment to be able to do that. But if we ever did upsize, we'd love to have like a communal kind of arcade machine that if we had people over or if we've got friends, family, or even kids, they could play on the arcade machine. I think that would be a dream. It's a really cool idea, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Initially, when I first got them, like a lot of my stuff, I was a bit precious about them because I wanted to keep them in good condition and all that kind of stuff, and I still do. But at the same time, these things were built to be played, and if they're not, if people don't enjoy them, what's the point? So put them somewhere that they're going to get played, and the kids have them on and off all the time.
Yeah.
They're bloody awful at them, but it's nice to go and sit alongside them and just have a bit of a button mash and knock a few of the foot soldier out and run around as your favourite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle while the kids are just falling down sewers and whatever else. It's
Nice.
keeps me amused.
Nice.
Anything left in your bag that you want to go through before we wrap this Christmas special?
I think that's pretty much it. I've got walkie-talkies. I've got other kind of secret spy stuff. Actually, I've just spotted a watch, which I believe was a walkie-talkie watch, which I think my brother had the counterpart for that.
And I was going to say, do you remember Dick Tracy? But again, I keep remembering we're 10 years apart. Dick
Don't
Tracy,
remember Dick
he had a communicator watch, and I remember thinking that's so bloody cool.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember thinking when Apple Watch were announced and stuff, or even before that, smartwatches started to become a thing. It was such a throwback to my childhood, where these kind of gadget watches were all the rage.
Yeah.
Only the ones you could buy never lived up to what the shows could do, and now we've got tech that does it, and it's amazing, isn't it? Really,
It is. It was always the dream as a kid to have something. Again, Spy Kids did this a lot, the kind of spy watch, and James Bond did it as well. And it was always the dream to have something so high tech and cool on your wrist, and now it's actually real.
It's reality.
Crazy, isn't it? To think.
It's amazing. Well, there you go. I hope you've enjoyed joining us on a little dip through our memories of Christmas, and I hope you're feeling festive and excited for your own Christmas periods. We'll leave you there. We'll see you for episode 49, and we will wish you a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.